Cello family. Welcome back to another Sister for Sisters story time session with your favorite demon slayer, Shia Fire. Um, this video is just a continuation of one of my previous videos on prostitution and such. We have gone over Gomer and his um, whore of a wife, and I just want to finish up what I've already started. So this is the end of the article on prostitution. So starting from extortion and blackmail. Prostitution, often when it is illegal, is used in extortion and blackmail, which always involves extortion, where the extortionist threatens to reveal information about a victim or their family members that is potentially embarrassing, socially damaging, or incriminating unless a demand for money, property, or services is met. The subject of the extortion may be manipulated into or voluntarily solicit the use of prostitution, which is then later used to extort money or for profit otherwise. The film The Godfather Part 2 famously depicts the role of Senator Geary, who is implicated in the use of prostitution in order to gain his compliance on political issues. Now, to see this in a biblical sense, when the devil wants to keep you in chains, he will use your past against you. Now, if you understand wrath and judgment, karma, how things that go around come back around, the Bible tells you that love and charity will cover a multitude of sins. That is, if you are coming out of your sin, not trying to cover up the sin. You can't use love or fake love and fake charity as a cover up for your continued willful sinning. So, financial cost to society. Because prostitution is considered criminal in many jurisdictions, its substantial revenues are not contributing to the tax revenues of the state, and its workers are not routinely screened for sexually transmitted diseases, which is dangerous in cultures favoring unprotected sex and leads to significant expenditure in the health services. According to 1992 estimates of the cost of crime in Australia report, there was an estimated $96 million loss of taxation revenue from undeclared earnings of prostitution. Psychological issues. Day Marneff, 2009, argued that there are psychological issues that prostitutes face from certain experiences and through the duration or repetition. Some go through experiences that may result in lasting feelings of worthlessness, shame, and self hatred. J. Marneff further argued that this may affect the prostitute's ability to perform sexual acts for the purpose of building a trusting, intimate relationship, which may be important for their partner. The lack of a healthy relationship can lead to higher divorce rates and can influence unhealthy relationship to their children, influencing their future relationships. Violence against prostitutes. Street prostitutes are at higher risk of violent crime than brothel prostitutes and bar prostitutes. In the United States, the homicide rate for female prostitutes was estimated to be 204 per 100,000. There are substantial differences in rates of victimization between street prostitutes and indoor prostitutes who work as escorts, call girls, or in brothels and massage parlors. Violence against male prostitutes is less common. Prostitution may sometimes be associated with illegal, abusive, and dangerous activities. One view maintains that this results from prostitution being stigmatized or illegal or both. Another, however, believes that legalizing and regulating prostitution does not improve the situation, but instead makes it worse, creating a parallel illegal prostitution industry and failing to dissociate the legal part of the sex trade from crime. Street prostitution. In street prostitution, the prostitute solicits customers while waiting at street corners, sometimes called the track by pimps and prostitutes alike. They usually dress in skimpy, provocative clothing, regardless of weather. In American usage, street prostitutes are often called street walkers, while their customers are referred to as tricks or johns. Servicing the customers is described as turning tricks. Tricks are for kids. Servicing the customers is, the sex is usually performed in the customer's car, in a nearby alley, or in a rented room. Motels and hotels that accommodate prostitutes commonly rent rooms by half or full hour. In Russia and other countries of the former USSR, prostitution takes the form of an open air market. One prostitute stands by a roadside and directs cars to a so called toka, usually located in alleyways or car parks, where lines of women are paraded for customers in front of their car headlights. The client selects the prostitute whom he takes away in his car. Prevalent in the late 1990s, this type of service has been steadily declining in recent years. A lot lizard is a commonly encountered special case of street prostitution. Lot lizards mainly serve those in the trucking industry at truck stops and stopping centers. Prostitutes will often proposition truckers using a CB radio from a vehicle parked in the non commercial section of a truck stop parking lot, communicating through codes based on commercial driving slang, then join the driver in his truck. Window prostitution is a form of prostitution that is fairly common in the Netherlands and surrounding countries. The prostitute rents a window plus workspace off a window operator for a certain period of time, often per day or part of a day. Anyway, um, the prostitute is also independent and recruits her own customers and also negotiates the price and the services to be provided. Brothel and red light district. Brothels are establishments specifically dedicated to prostitution, often confined to special red light districts in big cities. Other names for brothels include bordello or bordeo, whorehouse, cat house, knocking, knocking shop, and general houses. Prostitution also occurs in some massage parlors and in Asian countries in some barber shops where sexual services may be offered as a secondary function of the premises. Escorts or call girl and escort agency. Escort services may be distinguished from prostitution or other forms of prostitution in that sexual activities are often not explicitly advertised as necessarily included in these services. Rather, payment is often noted as being for an escort's time and companionship only. Although there is often an implicit assumption that sexual activities are expected. In escort prostitution, the act takes place at the customer's residence or hotel room, referred to as outcall, or at the escort's residence or in a hotel room rented for the occasion by the escort, called in-call. The prostitute may be independent or working under the auspices of an escort agency. Services may be advertised over the internet, in regional publications, or in local telephone listings. Use of the internet by prostitutes and customers is common. A prostitute may use adult boards or create a website of their own with contact details such as email addresses. Adult contact sites, chats, and online communities are also used. This, in turn, has brought increased scrutiny from law enforcement, public officials, and activist groups toward online prostitution. In 2009, Craigslist came under fire for its role in facilitating online prostitution and was sued by some 40 U.S. state attorneys general, local prosecutors, and law enforcement officials. Reviews of the services of individual prostitutes can often be found at various escort review boards worldwide. These online forums are used to trade information between potential clients and also by prostitutes to advertise the various services available. Sex workers, in turn, often use online forums of their own to exchange information on clients, particularly to warn others about dangerous clients. Sex tourism and child sex tourism. Sex tourism is travel for sexual intercourse with prostitutes or to engage in other sexual activity. The World Tourism Organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations, defines sex tourism as trips organized from within the tourism sector or from outside this sector, but using its structures and networks with the primary purpose of effecting a commercial sexual relationship by the tourist with residents as the destination. As opposed to regular sex tourism, which is often legal, a tourist who has sex with a child prostitute will usually be committing a crime in the host country under the laws of his own country, notwithstanding him being outside of it, and against international law. Child sex tourism, or CST, is defined as travel to a foreign country for the purpose of engaging in commercially facilitated child sexual abuse. Thailand, Cambodia, India, Brazil, and Mexico have been identified as leading hotspots of child sexual exploitation. Virtual sex, that is, sexual acts conveyed by messages rather than physically, is also the subject of commercial transactions. Commercial phone sex services have been available for decades. The advent of the internet has made other forms of virtual sex available for money, including computer mediated cyber sex, in which sexual services are provided in text form by way of chat rooms or instant messaging, or audio visually through a webcam. See Camgirl for more info. Prevalence. According to the paper estimating the prevalence and career longevity of prostitute women, the number of full-time equivalent prostitutes in a typical area in the United States, Colorado Springs, Colorado, during 1970 to 1988, is estimated at 23 per 100,000 population, or 0.023%, of which some 4% were under 18. The length of these prostitutes' working careers was estimated at a mean of 5 years. According to a 2012 report by Foundation Cells, there are between 40 and 42 million prostitutes in the world. In 2003, it was estimated that in Amsterdam, one woman in 35 was working as a prostitute compared to 1 in 300 in London. The number of men who have used a prostitute at least once varies widely from country to country, from an estimated low of between 7% and 8.8% in the United Kingdom to a high of between 59% and 80% in Cambodia. A study conducted by Procon, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, estimated the percentage of men who had paid for sex at least once in their lives and found the highest rates in Cambodia. Between 59 and 80% of men had paid for sex at least once, and Thailand, an estimated 75%, followed by Italy, 16.7 to 45%, Spain, 27 to 39%, Japan, 37%, the Netherlands, 13.5 to 21.6%, the United States, 15 to 20%, and China, 6.4 to 20%. Nations with higher rates of prostitution clients display much more positive attitudes towards commercial sex. In some countries, such as Cambodia and Thailand, sex with prostitutes is considered commonplace, and men who do not engage in commercial sex may be considered unusual by their peers. In Thailand, it has been reported that about 75% of men have visited a prostitute at least once in their lifetimes. In Cambodia, that figure is 59% to 80%. In the United States, a 2004 TNS poll reported 15% of all men admitted to having paid for sex at least once in their life. However, a paper entitled Prostitution and the Sex Discrepancy in Reported Number of Sexual Partners concluded that men's self-reporting of prostitutes as sexual partners provides a serious underestimate. So they're not really saying, everybody's not jumping the gun to say they've slept with a prostitute, especially not on record. In Australia, a survey conducted in the early 2000s showed that 15.6% of men aged 16 to 59 reported paying for sex at least once in their life, and 1.9% had done so in the past year. Reports disagree on whether prostitution levels are growing or declining in developed countries. Some studies indicate that the percentage of men engaging in commercial sex in the United States has declined significantly in recent decades. In 1964, an estimated 69 to 80% of men had paid for sex at least once. Some have suggested that prostitution levels have fallen in sexually liberal countries, most likely because of the increased availability of non commercial, non marital sex, or, for example, in Sweden, because of stricter legal penalties. Other reports suggest a growth in prostitution levels, for example, in the US, where again, sexual liberalization is suggested as the cause. As Norma Ramos, executive director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, says, the more the commercial sex industry normalizes this behavior, the more of this behavior you get. Prostitutes have long plied their trades to the military in many cultures. Pay attention now, the military. For example, the British naval port of Portsmouth had a flourishing local sex industry in the 19th century, and until the early 1990s, there were large red light districts near American military bases in the Philippines. The notorious Patpong Entertainment District in Bangkok, Thailand, sounds like somewhere people are having sex. Bangkok, come on. Started as an R&R location for U.S. troops serving in the Vietnam War in the early 1970s. Washington, D.C. itself had Murder Bay, which attracted the military of the Civil War. The village of Badia, India, is is known locally as the village of prostitutes, where unmarried women are involved in prostitution. Mass weddings for children of prostitutes in the village are held to protect them from being pushed into prostitution. Hmm. Medical situation. In some places, prostitution may be associated with the spread of sexually transmitted diseases, STDs. Lack of condom use among prostitutes and their clients has been cited as a factor in the spread of HIV in Asia. One of the main reasons for the rapid spread of HIV in Asian countries is the massive transmission among sex workers and clients. As a result, prevention campaigns aimed at increasing condom use by sex workers have been attributed to play a major role in restricting the spread of HIV. One of the sources for the spread of HIV in Africa is prostitution, with one study finding that encounters with prostitutes produced 84% of new HIV infections in adult males in Accra, Ghana. The spread of HIV from urban settings to rural areas in Africa has been attributed to the mobility of farmers who visit sex workers in cities, for example, in Ethiopia. Why do you want to buy food from people that have HIV? Think about it. If these people are sick and have diseases, they are sweating and sometimes getting cut on thorns or whatever machinery equipment that is going into the crop. So some studies of prostitution in urban settings in developing countries such as Kenya have stated that prostitution acts as a reservoir of STDs within the general population. Typical responses to the problem are banning prostitution completely, introducing a system of registration for prostitutes that mandates health checks and other public health measures, educating prostitutes and their clients to encourage the use of barrier contraception, and greater interaction with healthcare. Some think that the first two measures are counterproductive. Banning prostitution tends to drive it underground, making safe sex promotion, treatment, and monitoring more difficult. Registering prostitutes makes the state complicit in prostitution and does not address the health risk of unregistered prostitutes. Both of the last two measures can be viewed as harm reduction policies. In countries and areas where safer sex precautions are either unavailable or not practiced for cultural reasons, prostitution is an active disease vector for all STDs, including HIV/AIDS. But the encouragement of safer sex practices, combined with regular testing for sexually transmitted diseases, has been very successful when applied consistently. As an example, Thailand's condom program has been largely responsible for the country's progress against the HIV epidemic. It has been estimated that successful implementation of safe sex practices in India would drive the HIV epidemic to extinction, while similar measures could achieve a 50% reduction in Botswana. In 2009, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged all countries to remove bans on prostitution and homosexual sex because such laws constitute major barriers to reaching key populations with HIV services. In 2012, the Global Commission on HIV and the Law, which was convened by Ban Ki-moon and which is an independent body, was established at the request of the UNAIDS and supported by a secretariat based at the UNDP, reached the same conclusions, also recommending decriminalization of brothels and procuring. Nevertheless, the report states that the content, analysis, opinions, and policy recommendations contained in this publication do not necessarily reflect the views of the United Nations Development Program. The COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact on sex work. During the COVID-19 pandemic, contact professions, which includes prostitution amongst others, had been banned temporarily in some countries. This has resulted in a local reduction of prostitution. Now, we all know what the Bible would have done with these sinners. They would have been stoned to death, basically removed, exiled from the entire community, which is what is going on now. The great day of the Lord, a grand cleansing of the earth. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.